Welcome to Corpse Club, the official podcast of dailydead.com. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jonathan James. Today I'm joined by Bryan Christopher and Derek Anderson. Derek, he's back. So we're happy to have you. Yeah, we really are happy. It sounds like we're being sarcastic, but no, we are happy to have you back.
We missed it.
We did.
It's been so long. There was quite a long pause there before you're like, who's this guy again?
I know. That's why I was like, they forgot about you. No, as I always say, you are the what do you call it? You definitely have the most episodes in of any Corpse Club host. So it's okay if you take a little time off. But we're happy to have you back.
Oh, good to be back. Yeah, it was like a show on TV where I just took the summer off apparently, and now it's time to get back to work.
Yeah, it's like the Office.
Still ongoing.
It's like The Office where Andy like goes on that trip for a while, but really he was making Hangover. Like it was like Hangover 2 or something like that. And they had to like figure out what to do with his characters. So they put him on a boat, remember? I don't know if you've seen it, but they put him on a boat for ages.
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. With I think it was Josh Groban. It was his brother.
Yeah.
just put him on a boat and that'll explain it. I mean, I was partially on a boat quite a bit recently. So
you actually were. Yes.
Yeah, so.
You were literally on a boat. That was unintentional when I brought it up, but that's so funny. Cool. Well, we're going to catch up, of course. We always do that on these episodes. And on top of that, we're going to be talking about Jordan Peele's Nope. And we're going to be talking about What We Do in the Shadows, Season 4. We'll catch up on a few other things, Chucky, and I'm going to talk about Dracula and Son. And you'll be like, Dracula and Son? What's that? I will tell you. But first, we'll talk about the one that I have not seen. And I'm jealous because I did not make it to the drive-in. I am still not going to theaters. And I know there are many of you that are, they're not going to theaters. Make it to a drive-in if you can. I know for some people, you may be like, hey, it's a little bit of a drive. And for me, it's about 45 minutes or an hour away. I just haven't had the chance to do it. But I hope to catch up on Nope soon. I know a lot of people have loved it. And for those that haven't seen it, because I know not everyone gets to check things out on release week as well. There are people in the same boat as I am. We're keeping with the boat theme. But we'll keep this not light. We'll keep this a no spoiler discussion because I don't want to be spoiled. So besides the basic premise, but I still want to know what you guys thought. Let's see. Let's start with Derek, because Derek, we haven't had you around for a little bit. You just caught Nope recently. What do you think?
I really enjoyed it. It was, as in true Jordan Peele style, you think you're going in for one thing, and even after seeing the second trailer that I was like, oh man, this really shows too much. Like it still caught me by surprise. A lot of the stuff that happens in it, he just finds such a fresh way to explore these subgenres in each of his movies, and him taking on like the kind of this like UFO genre. It's really interesting what he did with it. And I think no matter what, when you go into it, it's going to be different than what you expected. So I was very pleasantly and disturbingly surprised by many of the things that happened in the film, especially in the second half.
Nice. And Bryan, how about you?
I really enjoyed it. Like that was my initial reaction as I was walking out of the theater was I really enjoyed it. As I have gotten some distance from it, I kind of love it. Like it's one of those movies that the more I've thought about it, the more I've really come to appreciate it and what Peele was doing in this movie. It's one of those things where I really want to make sure I'm tiptoeing the right way around not getting in anything spoiler wise. But yeah, it's, Peele has a really good way of subverting expectations, but not doing it in a way where it feels like a cheap plot twist gimmick. Like it's, again, forgive me for trying to just hem and haw because I'm just trying to make sure I don't give too much away. But I will also say that like it's also not a movie like I don't want to give anything away because there is like some jaw-dropping stuff that I think you do need to appreciate for the first time. But I also don't think it's a movie that requires the twist or the surprise to have it be. I don't know if enjoyable is the right word either, because it's a more disturbing film than I thought it was going to be. And one of the things that has stuck with me, and my wife, who was not a big horror fan, actually watched it with me, which turned out to be kind of a mistake because, make no mistake, this is a horror movie. And the one opinion that she had was that it felt like almost a kind of a first draft. Like it didn't feel like for her that certain pieces connected the way, because she has seen Get Out, like the way that Get Out kind of coalesces into something that's kind of hard to really like poke holes in. This, I think, is a bit messier, but I actually kind of love it for being a little bit messier, because I think the thing that Jordan Peele is always going to be fighting against is people are always going to be comparing whatever he puts out to Get Out. And, I'm sure, a lot of great directors, I'm sure Carpenter was dealing with the same thing, with everything being compared to Halloween. But I like the fact that this is, and my wife and I talked about it a little bit more, like this is kind of a pandemic movie. Not that that's necessarily the topic, but this is the shit that was coming out of Jordan Peele's brain through the course of the pandemic. And if this is the kind of stuff that we're going to be seeing for the next few years, that I'm pretty excited. I like the idea of something that's kind of raw and not necessarily as polished. And I don't know if polished is the right word, because it's still, it's a fairly big budget horror movie, but it doesn't coalesce the same way that Get Out or maybe even Us did. But that I appreciate that. I appreciate that it's rough around the edges in certain ways. And it packs a punch, like a really big punch. And I really enjoyed it.
I think it's interesting because he can take bigger swings now. He's Jordan Peele, and that wasn't the case with Get Out. So at least kind of comparing Get Out to Us, you can see with Us a filmmaker that feels less afraid to take chances. And not to say that he didn't take chances in Get Out, but it was a safer film in terms of it played to the smaller budget. It was more to the traditional Blumhouse, the original method that Blumhouse is kind of known for, kind of keeping it around a house, and having things that go on inside of it. And so, doing that, he really kind of got to, make a really tight focused film. I did feel that Us kind of sprawled out a little bit more. And for me, maybe to the film's detriment. I really did enjoy it, but I didn't love it. But I'm really excited for Nope. To answer, I don't even know if it's to answer your question, but to add to what Liz thought about it, feeling like some of the pieces didn't connect. I did recently read, it was on social, I don't recall the article, but mentioned that Jordan Peele did have like his initial assembly cut was 3+ hours. And so knowing that he had to get it down, and so he in his mind, when he had his, kind of the story and everything he envisioned, he had 3 hours worth of material that he had to pare down to whatever the runtime ended up being.
I would love to see that too, because this movie still clocks in at 2 hours, 11 minutes. And, you're thinking like, wow, how are you going to sustain that suspense over time? But from the opening scene, which arguably is like the creepiest part of the whole movie, and that kind of ongoing story that we revisit throughout the movie, from that scene on, it's just like there's always something so dynamic happening, and there's always something interesting going on, whether it's the character development, which there's really a lot of, even as they develop these characters while all these really strange occurrences are happening. And yet at the same time, it's like then these really big moments happen, and it feels like parts of the movie in the middle could be like the climax in another movie, but Peele just keeps like one-upping himself even throughout this movie. So I really appreciate just like how much he swung for the fences. And I do definitely agree with, like Us. I think he swung, for the fences even more than a lot of us thought was even possible, with just how ambitious that story was. And this one, I think, is actually a little more contained, maybe because of the smaller amount of characters and that kind of stuff, and the setting being in the desert. And it's a very, in some ways, a more focused movie, but definitely no less ambitious in what he's trying to do with kind of flipping something on its head, so to speak, and giving you something that you are going to just keep thinking about long after you leave the theater.
Yeah, that's definitely the case for me. There's two scenes in particular in this movie that I can't get out of my head, because they were just so disturbing. And so it's any movie that can do that, I'm going to appreciate, because obviously we're all pretty desensitized at this point. So anything that doesn't come from France in like the early 2000s that can disturb you the way that a couple of these scenes did, I gotta tip my cap to it. And the cast is top notch in this movie. Daniel Kaluuya, who is kind of becoming, they're becoming a bit of a pair. Jordan Peele and Daniel Kaluuya are. Keke Palmer is amazing. They've got a really good brother sister dynamic in the movie. Stephen Yeun. I can't say I can't say anything about his character other than he does it really well. And I'm also so happy to see Michael Wincott back in a big movie like Top Dollar, several Derek, several Disney movies from back in the 90s, a great character actor, who's just got that deep, throaty, gravelly voice. I was very happy to see him back. And newcomer Brandon Perea also knocked it out of the park.
Oh,
it's not a huge cast. I think that five is kind of the central five that you're going to see. You do get a brief, I would say a little bit more than a cameo, but like a very important role by Keith David at the beginning of the movie, in flashback. So it's he cast it so well, and I just I really am interested to see in the future, like as we get that hindsight when we talk about kind of certain eras of movies. I think the movies that we see come out of COVID are going to be ones that like are people just saying like this is the shit that's been swirling around my brain for the last 2 years. Take it or leave it, because I need to get it out of my head.
Yeah, and it's very like kind of reflective of that, because even in this, just the fact that these characters they get to that point where they're afraid to, just stepping outside of your home is such a big risk. Like it's so reflective of the times, and even though it's this really kind of out there story, it's like everyone can relate to, you may not know what's going to happen when you walk out your front door, and just kind of clinging to the safety of like your immediate surroundings. And in this movie, when you walk outside, there's just such a vast sky, and everything looks so big and open, and it's like, it's kind of, and it's daytime a lot of the time, and it's not like your typical like horror environment. Like I almost think of like the setting of Tremors, where it's like just this big vast openness, and yet he makes it so claustrophobic, where it's like you can't trust anything outside your house. And that's such a fear that I think we can all like relate to right now. And it's just amazing that he's able to do that and do it in a way that's different than a lot of like alien movies or UFO movies or whatever you want to call it. It's just a very interesting way to kind of take on that genre and do something different.
And the thing I like too is that, with the setup he has at Universal, he can just keep doing this. I think it's kind of like he kind of has the M. Night Shyamalan deal, and you can kind of learn. There have been some comparisons, and I don't think all of them are. I don't think a lot of them are fair. I think in some cases people are kind of like expecting like, what's the twist, from Jordan Peele, and I don't think that he's necessarily that type of filmmaker. He can be, but I don't think it's all about like the quote unquote twist, which everybody started looking at into that kind of stuff for M. Night Shyamalan. But and Jordan Peele can certainly, step out of his comfort zone. At one point, he was attached to an Akira movie, and that was going to, be $100 million budget movie or 80 million. They were fighting over budget. I don't even know if he was, but I just know, I've seen that budget go up and down, and a ton of different filmmakers attached, almost like the Crow movie. And
strangely enough, there is a brief Akira homage.
I did hear about that. So I think that's probably part of it. Him kind of dealing with that too, because I know he was at least close to it at one point. But, M. Night Shyamalan kind of attached himself to those bigger movies. They didn't pan out. Whether you like them or not, that's, if you like them, that's fine. But from a business perspective, it didn't. But the deal he has, I mean, he's a household name. He can make any movie he wants. He's been doing it with Blumhouse and Universal, and keep a modest budget. It always sees a return. And I think it's a good, Blumhouse has kind of perfected it. But I think for any filmmakers who want to, do something that's not a franchise, because you do have to compete these days. It's kind of weird to think about it, but you are competing against Marvel, and you're competing against Star Wars, and you're competing against DC and these big properties, and you want to come up with these new ideas. One way to be competitive is to with a non-IP is to keep the budget low. I mean, we see The Black Phone was under $20 million, and it's going to gross 100 here. So, Jordan Peele has a winning formula. I'm excited to see what he's going to keep doing.
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where it's kind of an event now when a new Jordan Peele movie comes out, and it's funny because this is like the third directorial feature film by him, but it feels like he's been doing this for like 25 years already, because it's such like he's already so quickly established this, like, raise the bar so high where you feel like, it's an event where everyone needs to go see the new Jordan Peele. And, even the stuff that he's like co-written or produced, like it's, it means so much to see that his name up there. And it's just, to have that outside of like a franchise or, a studio, or, like a superhero franchise, which I love those movies, but to have that outside of that, where it's like each movie is such its own thing, is so rare these days. And I just can't wait to see what he does next, because like, I feel like he just tries to do something so different than his last film. So I really, after watching this one, I really don't know where he goes from here, but I'm super excited, whatever that direction may be.
Yeah, more and more these days, I'm really pulling for, any director, any filmmakers, creatives that can kind of, break the mold and have something original and it be a big box office hit, or just get a lot of attention, whether it's, a lot of people streaming it or whatever the case may be. But, it's just weird because, we see that, like Disney has so many, and I love Star Wars and I love Marvel movies, but also like they have so many of these like tentpole movies that a movie like Prey, like a Predator prequel, which everybody loves so far who has seen it, is not getting a theatrical release because they don't have the space. So it's going to be harder and harder for you to see like a theatrical movie that kind of breaks free of some of these tent poles and really, gets people to the theater. I think it's really cool that Jordan Peele and other filmmakers can get people, to pack a theater to see something brand new. They don't know exactly what they're going to get.
And I will throw in for anybody who has seen Nope and are looking for, Jordan Peele movies are kind of those ones that almost beg you to start like digging in and looking at context and looking for Easter eggs, things like that. Two really good articles have been written about it so far, or at least I'm sure more than that, but two that caught my notice. Danny Bethea has written Nope, I Will Make Thee a Spectacle. They really get into a lot of like the historical context of the things that they're discussing in Nope, centering kind of, how kind of like refreshing it is that they center Black people in the movie, but also the way that they kind of light Black people, with kind of cinematography and the makeup that they do is all centered on, people who know how to work with Black actors. So there's a lot of really good stuff in there. And also, Derek and I keep hinting at like the scene in the movie. If you're looking at for a good breakdown of that, Richard Newby has a really good article in the Hollywood Reporter called Nope, the meaning behind Jordan Peele's most terrifying scene yet. So those are, I think, two really good articles. If you've seen it and you're still kind of trying to make some sense of it, those are two good articles that put some good context on it.
Nice. Well, once I see it, I will read them. But yeah, thanks for pointing those out. It's it's just incredible. I don't know. Maybe it was always there. Maybe it's because there are new outlets. It's easier to get publish your own pieces. When I started, it was hard to get blog software. There was no blog software. There were no blogs, and so you only had a handful of sites. And so the criticism and it was more reviews and less of these like deep dives after the fact. I do really love like an after the fact analysis, because you have this like whole like promotional wave that's like leading up. It's the teaser for the trailer, like that 10-second, like we'll drop the trailer in 5 days. And some of them might be like 4 days. Here's another like 3-second clip. And so, it's kind of like goes. It
Hell,
can go
they
like,
even have the thing where when you start the trailer, it says, here's the trailer. And they play like 2 seconds of the trailer.
Exactly. I know. So we kind of get so used to this like promotional wave, and it's like the teaser for the trailer, the teaser trailer, like trailer 1, as a movie's about to be released, you see trailer 2, all the posters, the IMAX exclusive poster, the Dolby exclusive poster. And I understand it all has its purpose, but then usually what happens is the movie comes out and then there's burnout, and then you wouldn't see a lot of that stuff for years. So anyway, I'm real happy to see, like I said, the amount of post-release discussion, the deep dive articles, behind the scenes with the makeup effects, which I know Heather's done a bunch of for us for Fangoria. That stuff's always really cool. So we've talked about Nope. I feel like I'm stopping this now, because if we keep talking about it, I know spoilers are gonna.
I'm actually pretty proud of us, Derek, that I think we avoided spoilers.
I'm proud of the both of you. Yeah, and
we didn't even have to edit anything out. Like what you're listening to is what that was our first take.
Yeah, but you're gonna jinx yourself. So we're moving on to What We Do in the Shadows.
Good call.
Which is back. It's back. It's back on FX and it's on Hulu. I watch it on Hulu. We don't have, well, it's a lie. We have cable because I'm required to have it for my phone and internet package. I think that Verizon is hoping that one day I'll be like, that cable box, I'm going to turn it back on. And you know what? I need more channels, and I need on top of HBO Max, I need HBO on my cable box. But so they told me that if I were to have cut cable entirely, like I stripped it down to like whatever the lowest package is, but they said if I remove the box, it will cost me more for just the phone and internet. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense, but that's what they tell me. So I don't watch cable. And so what we have is we have Hulu. Hulu's where we catch up on FX. And so anyway, so What We Do in the Shadows just came out. 4 weeks? We're 4 weeks in. I think we're on episode 4. And I know
I'm on 3, Jonathan, so watch it.
Oh, now I have the power.
just remember, I still have the entirety of Nope in my head if you want to start some shit.
This is, you know what? And in this Cold War, you definitely have
I have the atom bomb.
Yeah,
sir.
You do. I don't. I have like a stick. We haven't made our way to bullets and missiles. Okay, so where to even start? Well, I will say this. I love What We Do in the Shadows, a movie. I love the TV show. I still loved season 3, but I think we had talked about last time, Brian, that season 3 felt a little different. And I think it was, for me, it was that season 1 and 2, they didn't know if they were coming back necessarily. So everything felt pretty self-contained. We didn't see them doing a lot of world building, and like the character arcs felt like it was made to last that season in case that was it. In season,
there was a lot of forward momentum in those first 2 seasons. Yeah.
In season 3, we can see them building to a little bit of a larger world, character arcs, which seem to now be going somewhere in this season or future seasons, or in season 4 or future seasons. And I won't give too many spoilers for people that haven't caught up, but also in a lot of cases, this isn't a huge show that you can spoil. I mean, you'd be like, oh, well, I wish I didn't know that, but like I don't think it ruins the enjoyment that much. So just as a warning to Derek and to others, we will jump into like some of the major story elements, but I'll try to not go too deep. But at the end of season 3, I guess at the start of season 4, I was very surprised that the events of season 3 were just glossed over. I have no problem with it. I just expected that when they kind of went overseas and we see like the train and the boat and like all of our characters are kind of like headed in different directions, that we were going to have like What We Do in the Shadows Does Europe, because we've seen other shows do that, right? And didn't you expect that?
Yeah, I did. And I guess in hindsight, like this is still a fairly small show on FX, so it might have been a little bit a little bit too high expectations to think like, oh, it's gonna like, you know, span to other countries. Like obviously they wouldn't have to go to other countries, but you know, we would be talking multiple new sets. And I think it would also cause some, I think, some narrative lulls or friction, because you know, part of what makes the show so good is the interaction among the group. So if the group split up for the first part of the season, you know, I think you're losing a lot of that dynamic. So I was also surprised with how quickly things returned back to the house, i.e. spoiler alert, immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
But in hindsight, I guess it makes sense.
Yeah, it does. But part of me, you know, and I haven't asked anybody this, it's just speculation. Somebody might know the answer. Feel free to correct me. But to me, this feels potentially like this was a casualty of COVID, which is like, we can't actually go to too many places. We have to have enclosed sets. We have to have COVID protocols, and rightfully so. So I can imagine that maybe they did have plans to like have more of a European adventure. And then when they're looking at, well, we have to really stay within the sets that we have. We've already built them, and let's just stay here. And maybe that was a plan the entire time. But I can also imagine them easily kind of pivoting in this direction.
I can see that being the case, where like they ended season 3 thinking like, hey, I think we're on our way out of this thing. I think we'll have a lot more leeway with where we can do our sets next year. And then they realize, oh, maybe not so much. Back to the house, everybody. I could see that being the case. I don't know if it's necessarily it, but yeah, that seems entirely feasible.
The only reason why is if you removed that entire story element, like it doesn't change anything that happens in season 4 after they get back. Like, and this is, again, I don't feel like there's a spoiler because we're talking about just basic elements of this. Like Naja starts a club, but like she always could have started the club there. So anyway, and I don't have a problem with it. I just, there are a few things that make me think that, like I said, maybe we did lose some planned stories.
I also do think that carries over well into my mindset for season 4, because yeah, we both, I think, you know, I know personally I had a few issues with the way season 3 panned out. I still quite enjoyed it, but with the idea that they were getting a better sense for they were going to have this show for a longer time, that narrative push that I enjoyed in season 1 and 2 wasn't there. And it felt like, you know, there was a lot more spinning of wheels. It felt like they were stalling out a bit, but kind of seeing that this is settling into, because I think they're definite for 4 and 5 at this point, if I remember correctly.
I believe so, yes.
So like, I know going into it that they're kind of doing this a little bit more for the long haul, and they're not necessarily setting up any kind of an end game anytime soon. So I kind of, that helped manage my expectations that things were going to be a little bit more like, I don't know, this is a little bit more like The Simpsons now, where it's like they're not, it's more an episode by episode thing. And there will be, you know, clearly with baby Colin Robinson, like there's going to be some season long arcs, but I don't think it's going to be quite as serialized as the first 2 seasons were. And by making that pivot into what, in terms of what I'm expecting, I'm just kind of enjoying the episodes for what they are now, which, you know, they're still a lot of fun this season.
Yeah. I've had a lot of fun with all of them. I mean, we have a new character that's introduced, which is a djinn or a genie that grants wishes, and in here and for the and I think what adds to the fun of this, it's not 3 wishes. What is it? Is it 60? It's a lot.
Something like that. It's a lot. And of course it's
Yeah.
Nandor, so he immediately starts wasting them.
Yeah. And
it's 52 that's wishes.
Funny.
Yeah.
So yeah, they start dealing with wishes. There's a joke, or a bit that they run about, just trying to have like a wish that's not going to be like a monkey's paw situation. So it's like all these stipulations on it. And I don't know about I don't know how many monkey's paw conversations you guys have had. I've had a couple, and whenever I have these with Christy, I'm like, yeah, I would make sure it was like this and this and this. It usually comes up during the Tales from the Crypt movie because there's a monkey's paw segment, and so I usually talk about how I try to get out of it.
I always think about the monkey's paw segment on the Simpsons Treehouse of Horror, where all these things are going horribly for the Simpson family, and so finally Homer just orders a turkey and cheese sandwich, and he's like, I don't want it to be made out of a zombie turkey that'll attack me. I don't want it to be, I don't want to be the turkey that's going to be in the sandwich. And so the turkey sandwich gets there, and he's like, good bread, good mustard. The turkey's a little dry. Oh my God, the turkey's a little dry. Curse you, monkey's paw. which has always kind of affected the way, like, I think I've had the internal discussion about if I would be able to beat a monkey's paw, but I'm just like, hey, if the Simpsons can't beat it, I don't think I have any chance.
No, you can't. Yeah, I don't. It can't be beaten. So,
if Homer Simpson can't beat the monkey's paw, certainly there's no way I can.
Yeah, and we're only 4 episodes in. I know you said you're 3, but we're 4 episodes in total, so we still have, I think, at least another 4. So we'll see what happens with all the wishes, but they're not up. They're not up yet. And I will say there is, and I'm not going to spoil anything, but the night market episode that we just saw is honestly one of my personal favorites. They do a lot of fun things with it. There's a lot of fun things in it, and I know you will enjoy it. And but yeah, it's good.
I am looking forward to it. And I do just want to give a very quick shout out. I think we've talked about this before, but like, if you happen to if you plow through What We Do in the Shadows and you need a little bit more of that flavor, a little bit more of, I don't know, like a sweeter kind of less, because it's What We Do in the Shadows is quite raunchy. For those who are looking for something a little bit more family friendly, Wellington Paranormal has done this season is their 4th season. It's there's some overlap in terms of the people involved. Jermaine Clement and Paul Yates were responsible for this one. Like I said, I think we've talked about this one, but it's kind of adorable. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's good.
You can see the same kind of like sensibilities running through both, but it's definitely its own thing. I think in the States it's mainly just running on HBO Max. If you're
that's where I saw it. Yeah.
So if you get a chance, definitely check it out.
So now I have 2 shows to catch up on.
You do. And the thing is What We Do in the Shadows is so quick. It's like 23 minutes or something like that, 27 minutes. So you can fly through that.
Like years from now, it'll be like on syndication reruns on like FX, and it'll just be, it'll be like The Office, where I've seen episodes like 20 times each, but they just go so quick.
Yeah, Christy watches it on repeat, so she already does. I'll
nice.
She can't find anything to watch. Sometimes, we'll leave Logan and put on What We Do in the Shadows. Although we leave on Teen Titans Go a lot for him. We leave cartoons for Logan.
Also a good choice.
Yeah, that's a fun one. But yeah, anything else, Brian, before we move on to additional vampires?
Think I'm good on that.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, I did want to talk for a minute about, because a lot of this is catching up on what we've been up to, and I saw Dracula and Son. We talked about the Uncle Dracula, which was the Italian Christopher Lee movie I had checked out, as part of Severin's Eurocrypt of Christopher Lee Volume 2. I had to think about all that. But I finally saw Dracula and Son, which is 1976, if I'm not mistaken. It is a French film. Christopher Lee speaks fluent French and of course English, and he speaks I think it's German as well, but he speaks a number of languages. And so this is a French film. It is his last outing as Dracula, and I had not seen it before. As I understand it, there was a U.S. cut, which was, kind of butchered. I think it was like 20 minutes shorter, 15 minutes shorter than the like director's cut or the European cut. And Severin, thank you very much. They released the director's cut. They released it in French with English subtitles and also with an English dub, which Christopher Lee does both. So this one was pretty interesting. It's definitely a comedy, but kind of deals with, it kind of like crosses time. It starts in the 16 or 1700s, Transylvania, and he falls in love. And with a woman, he doesn't turn into a vampire. He has a son with her. He's a vampire. She becomes a vampire. She incinerates, and it's him, kind of like, trying to find his love, over the years. His son kind of growing up and being like a more of like a bumbling vampire who doesn't drink blood, isn't as suave as Christopher Lee. And it takes us back, and then it takes us all the way up to the present 1970s, where Christopher Lee is basically playing Christopher Lee. So it's a bit of a meta thing where he's a vampire playing a vampire, and he's this famous actor now, and his son and him got separated. They eventually get together, and him and his son have kind of fight over the same woman. And it's, I always love finding these gems, as a lot of our listeners, as the two of you know, I'm a huge Hammer fan, huge Christopher Lee fan, and there's always gaps. And then for our listeners too, that's okay. If everyone's like, you're not a real horror fan, if you haven't seen every film by person X or this movie, don't listen to them, because sometimes it's just not possible. Or sometimes, you'll have a company like Severin or Vinegar Syndrome, they'll turn you on to a gem that maybe you weren't aware of. In this case, they had to, take the negatives and restore them and uncover a lot of these great films from Christopher Lee, where we're used to, like I said, like a lot of the Hammer films and Wicker Man. They released 2 box sets of lesser known films. So I really enjoyed it. For me, it was a real treat because I've seen all of the other ones, and to like, kind of finish it out or round it out with this was awesome. And to be able to do that in my 30s, right? Because it's like, people are always talking about how there's like no good horror movies, but there's always good stuff. There's always a rare gem you can find. This was one of those for me.
That is awesome. Yeah, I love the Severin box sets. I mean, it's, so much is on streaming these days, and I know sometimes there is some, some of those you can find on streaming, but like those box sets are such great preservations of cinema history and really preserving it in a way that it's meant to be seen. And just like the artwork is always so cool. And I mean, Christopher Lee, it's amazing, like looking back at his filmography, and you think of like, oh, he did, these Hammer horror films, or like, and of course the stuff later in his career with Lord of the Rings. And so you're like, you feel like you have a general idea of what he did. But then when you really look and see like, some of the other, like the French films and things like that, and everything that's been in the Eurocrypt, it's like, wow, he did a lot that a lot of people don't really even realize. And that's what's so cool about, what Severin does with that, is they really kind of put a spotlight on stuff that would otherwise maybe be forgotten over time.
Yeah. Like they had a Polish, like Alfred Hitchcock Presents. And so it was an anthology TV show. He hosts it. They included that in the first box set. Well, all the episodes they were able to recover, because not all of them survived. But, wow. It's things like that. Yeah. The way I see it is I kind of see it like kind of in some ways like kickstarting or supporting their efforts. So when I see a box set, it's something I really like, and I've gotten most of them. I know that not everybody has the opportunity to pick them up. They can be pricey. I realize I'm fortunate, but I do feel like investing in those companies is kind of, and buying from them is like investing in saving horror, horror history, because without companies like this, these things don't survive and they don't find a new audience and they get lost to time. And so there is, the work that, like I said, Severin and Vinegar Syndrome and many other companies are doing, Scream Factory. They're saving some of these movies that eventually they would be completely lost, right? If you don't get them scanned and restored, some of them are just not stored properly and they have a shelf life. So the clock is ticking on some of these.
Do you think you'll ever confidently be able to say, I have seen every movie in which Christopher Lee plays a vampire?
Yeah, I think at this point, I'm supposed to be like,
You
no,
think you've done it?
I think at this point I've done it. I've seen all the Hammer films, of course. I've seen the ones that they have on this box set. They have a Spanish Dracula film that he was in where he's got a mustache. And so, no, I think we're good on those. The only thing that maybe, and I guess I'll say there's a small chance, is that there was an IMDb back then. And, occasionally, and not even occasionally, these actors would work for different studios. So whether you're, Vincent Price or Christopher Lee or Peter Cushing, like you might, and Christopher Lee did more of these where he would do an Italian production, he would do a Polish production and a German production. So is it possible that he filmed a vampire movie which is lost to time? And if somebody knows of one, let me know so I can be like, oh, I gotta look for this. I think there is a possibility. But out of all the ones that I'm aware of, and I did some more research on, I've seen them all. Now, in terms of seeing every Christopher Lee movie, that there are still quite a few that I have to catch up on, including those box sets. I've seen a lot. I've seen dozens and dozens, but he has hundreds of credits.
We'll get
Yeah, it's amazing.
yeah. I'm working on it. I've deprioritized a lot of my other box sets for the Christopher Lee box when it came in, and but yeah, so that's been really cool to see. But let's move on. I know that Derek, we couldn't talk to you much about what we do in the shadows. You haven't seen Dracula and Son, but I know there is something that you caught up on, and that is Chucky.
That's right. I actually have caught up on something over the past few months and quite recently as well. I mean, I saw the trailer for season 2 that was released during Comic-Con, and it kind of spurred me on to finish, what was left in my DVR. And it was awesome. I know I'm kind of late to the party on this. I remember us all talking about this like a year ago. But time is a very fluid thing. So it was really cool though to finally catch up with Chucky and to watch the all 8 episodes of the first season. Kind of just echoing what we've discussed. It's just amazing what Don Mancini has done with this franchise over the years, and then with the TV series actually being able to take people from the movies and those storylines and continue them in a way that is coherent and makes sense. And like, it feels like he really took a lot of care to make that through line work and to make it organic. And, it's just fun to see all these different faces kind of pop up and cross paths over the course of the first season. But honestly, I was like hooked just from the first few episodes with the new characters. I thought they had, even if they hadn't been able to kind of tie back to the movies, I think they just on their shoulders alone, the show stands really well. And the whole story with Jake and Devin, I think is really awesome how they were able to showcase that, and to really, I mean, Jake is such an interesting character played by Zachary Arthur, where you think that he's going to be the one that, is going to kind of fall under Chucky's influence. And so he kind of toes that line for a while, and you really don't know which way he's going to go. So to kind of watch that character arc and then see what happens with someone like Junior, it's really interesting how they kind of play with your expectations. And I really think they found ways to keep you on your toes and to really keep the kills very creative. And it's no two kills were quite the same, except maybe in the final episode in the movie theater. But it was really interesting, and I'm glad I finally got to catch up, because it's not going to be long now. This fall, I believe, is when the new season will air, and they'll be doing another Halloween episode. So I think it's going to be like the talk of the fall once again. I mean, this has got to be like the most anticipated, one of the most anticipated things happening in horror this fall, maybe other than the new Halloween movie as well.
And in case you were wondering, yes, Devon Sawa will be returning for season 2 in a third role.
I know. I love that. That he's, after playing twins too, after it was like playing two characters in the first season wasn't enough, he's also playing a new character in season 2, which I love. How looks like we're going to be spending some time, like they're going into like the convent setting, or like it looks like some kind of like a religious boarding school or something like that. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't see the trailer, so I have questions. So I did assume, oh, guys, we're going to spoil. More than minor spoilers. Sorry if you haven't seen Chucky. I can't ask this question without it. The kids have, this is a major spoiler warning. There we go. The kids have no parents, right? So they sent them to a boarding school, and that's where the season 2 is taking place. Is that correct? I didn't watch the trailer.
That's the vibe I'm getting, and that was definitely my big question. Like, hey, they're okay, but hey, none of them have any parents anymore. So what the hell are they going to do? So yeah, it looks like there's some kind of, it looks like they're in some kind of a church-like setting. But it also looks to be kind of a school. So I don't know if it's like an orphanage. I don't know if it's just like a religious boarding school for them to kind of like get through their last few years of high school. Cause it's a really weird period for like these 3 kids to have lost their parents, because they're not like kids that can just go like kind of get adopted by another family, because they're almost they're almost 18. But it's also like they're not 18, like they can't like go to college or whatever like the next step would be. Yeah. So yeah, it looks like they found an interesting way, because of course the part of the fun of Chucky is like he's not the only villain, or he's not the only antagonist for these kids' lives. So I would imagine 2 gay kids having to navigate a highly religious boarding school is gonna give them some roadblocks. So yeah, it's I think this is going to be Mancini's coming in with an interesting playground to play in for season 2.
Yeah, I'm just, I just always, even if I'm not grinning now and I'm slightly grinning, but there's always just an internal grin, because I just never would have thought that the strongest franchise, would be the Chucky franchise. Cause I mean, at the same time, Child's Play kicked off, excuse me. And we were in Child's Play 2, Nightmare, Friday, Halloween, they were all still going strong. And so I never expected that, in terms of keeping continuity, and the one I'm most excited for, I'm more excited for, and everybody's gonna be like, blasphemy. I'm more excited for the new season of Chucky than I am for Halloween Ends. If I had to pick one to see, I would take Chucky season 2.
I'm more morbidly curious about Halloween Ends, but I am more anticipating quality out of season 2 of Chucky.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm excited for it. I'll watch both, right? Because I'm gonna get death threats. I'll watch both. But if we're doing you must pick one, then I would pick Chucky season 2.
I'd be with you.
And I'm just crossing my fingers for the crossover, right? Like this is the time. I mean, it could work. It's Universal, so it could happen.
God, right? Chucky versus Michael Myers. I would kind of love to see that.
See, I mean, yeah. Freddy versus Jason. Why not Chucky versus Michael? I mean, because is Halloween, you got to think, is Halloween Ends really going to end? Is it going to be? It
just ends this story. It's definitely not. They've already, multiple people have said like it ends this like trilogy. Yeah, it's not ending. It's never going to end. It'll never
end. Yeah. And that's a good thing. I mean, I don't, it's good to see all these different takes on these characters, but yeah, it's been there's a lot of if you've watched Chucky, there's a lot of things that were teased in that final episode, even like in the final like 3 minutes of that episode, that I want to see what happens. And I also, there's a couple characters I don't really know where they ended up, so I kind of want to see what becomes of that. But it's I think they definitely set the bar high, but I have no reason to think that they won't exceed what they've already done so far, just based on the team that they have, and Tony Gardner, with the effects, and Brad Dourif and Fiona Dourif. I mean, there's just so many great pieces to that puzzle that it seems like such a great team effort that I just don't see how they can do any wrong, going into season 2.
Yeah. And it's so weird too. And I know I've said this before, but Christy, for our listeners, like, that's my wife, but Christy hates Chucky. Like, growing up, like she was scared of him because it was like one of the first things she saw, and she
Right.
hates Chucky. And over the years, she's gotten more comfortable. I think now it's gotten to acceptance, because now she's watched the show. She likes the show. We have a life-size Chucky in the house. And it's been
I like how you've done immersion therapy. Oh, you hate Chucky? Here's a life-size Chucky doll.
One just showed up. A half-size one. A half-size one showed up a few years ago.
Which is always great within the context of the Chucky universe, when a Chucky doll just shows up.
Right? Yeah.
Nothing bad
What could go
come
wrong?
of that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just shows up. So the thing I did, though, is I kept it in the box and I kept it restrained. So I did, and I don't tease her with any of that stuff. I really don't, because like she enjoys the stuff. I don't want her to, like, what do you call it? Well, I don't want her to stab Chucky either. But no. So no, Chucky remains restrained.
Well, and I feel like I've overcome some of my fears as well. I can relate to Christy with that, because as I've discussed on previous episodes, like when my uncle was babysitting my sister and I, that was one of the movies he put on to pass the time and keep us occupied, was like the Child's Play movies that were playing on TV, and then Tremors, of course. And so, yeah, it was this was one of those early, like, partly one of those movies that just sticks with you, because you were traumatized by like how like horrific it was to see like a killer doll, but at the same time you were fascinated by it, and it kind of helped me get into horror in the first place. So I feel like I do have that like love-hate relationship with just like the personality of Chucky and everything, but I can't look away. Like, I have to see. You can't take your eyes off a killer doll anyway. But
yeah, exactly. But yeah, I'm really excited for season 2. And before we wrap things up, we'll wrap things up in a minute. I did want to give our listeners and my co-hosts a heads up about a competition I recently took part in. We will, from time to time, you've heard that behind the scenes, I've been doing some comic book work, and the first thing that you'll see from me is actually something I teamed up with Oliver Levang on. He worked on Lazaretto for Boom Studios with Clay McLeod Chapman. If you haven't read that, it's a zombie pandemic book that they put together well before COVID. But I do highly recommend it. And anyway, we took part in, what was it, like 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. It was from Platform Comics, and it's a challenge where you have, I'm trying to explain this all succinctly. You have 7 days to finish the comic, and every team that registers is given a unique theme. You don't know the theme until the start of the first day of the challenge, but every team has to use the same phrase in the comic. Find a unique way to do it. So, for example, in past years, like, some of the themes were like One Night in Paris. It was, I think there was like a Cold War spy thriller. And so you'll get a randomized thing, and there are dozens or hundreds of teams that register. And so I was joking before it came up, because I'm like, well, hopefully it's a good theme. I'm like, it's going to be Barbershop Quartet. And so that was the running joke for a little bit. I'm like, it's going to be barbershop quartet. I'm going to figure out how to put horror in that. One year, somebody actually randomly got horror as their theme. It's like they got super lucky, unless they don't like horror, in which case they didn't. And so our theme was, and I'm looking at, I get the email on whatever Tuesday it was that it came in, and I look at the theme, and it is Secret Drag Race Club. And I'm like, oh my God, what are we gonna drag racing? Like, first of all, to tell a story like with drag racing going on, like it's a very specific story. Like if you tell me it's one night in Paris, I can put people in the catacombs. They could be at a restaurant. They could be at the Eiffel Tower. You tell me it's a Cold War spy thriller, I can easily put horror into that. And so we had to we racked our brains to try to figure out, well, what are we going to do with this? And then the phrase that everybody had to include in their story was let it burn. So somewhere in your story you had to say, or there's a sign, but you need to let it burn. So anyway, thankfully we came up with a pretty kick-ass story probably within 3 hours. I banged out the script within the first 12 hours. And Oliver is a beast. I'm super excited for you to check out all the stuff he did, because for those that are not completely familiar with the comic creation process, you kind of like storyboard it. So you have the script and you kind of storyboard it, and then you pencil it all out in more detail, and then you put inks over the pencils, and then you color it. And then you put the bubbles, and then you put the letters in the bubbles. And so in the page count was you could do 4 to 8 pages. We did 8 pages. And I say we, but it really was not me. I provided feedback, and it was a real creative partnership. But wow, I was super, super impressed with what Oliver put together. So anyway, I'm not going to go into too much detail about what we did, because they're going to announce details on like who's going to be in the challenge, and putting whoever the finalists are, you get put in an anthology. If we do that, it'll be in an anthology, and we'll share the details on Daily Dead. If it's not, we'll still release it. We had a lot of fun with it. I will tell people the title of it, which the title we came up with is Hell Racer. Not Hellraiser, Hellraiser.
Oh, nice. That's fun.
Yeah, so we had a little fun with that. So the title of ours is Hellraiser, and yeah, I think that's about all I want to say for now. But we'll just say, yeah, it's it's in the title. So
did you turn a car into a Cenobite? Because if you did, you're my hero.
No, not exactly.
Then I'm not reading it.
Yeah,
I'm out.
Not exactly, but we did have some fun with it. We also, and then also the thing too was that, like, because it said secret, it said like I said, it said Secret Drag Race Club. It was like, the funny thing about that too is that, like, I'm not a major like car guy. Like I can drive a car, I have a license, but like. So I had to make sure to do our research on like how many cars can you have in a drag race, and then we also have some like homages to some famous movie cars in there as well. So anyway, we had a good time doing it, even though we never in a million years would have created a drag racing comic book. But we did. And so it's an 8-pager, complete story, and we will have that to share with people very soon. Hopefully by the next episode of Corpse Club, we'll be sharing it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Excited.
Yeah.
That's cool. I love how you are forced to kind of work within a topic that you like. It's like it pushed you to do something creative, outside of what you probably would have done otherwise. And sometimes that's like, I know that like sometimes entire books get written because they were randomly, like in workshop exercises, you randomly get assigned like, well, make this work as the topic. And then you're like, oh, this is actually a pretty cool story. And you keep going with it. So I really love that. I love that creative process where you're just kind of forced to do something, and then having the time limit on top of that, it just kind of like forces you to really just put something together and let it go, instead of being like, oh, I have to perfect this over.
Yeah, no, there was no perfecting it. Yeah, there were a lot of polish rounds. So we did a lot of updates on Google Docs. I think we had, and the funny thing too is we did it all over email. I think we had like 70 emails back and forth over the 7 days. And it was just like little feedback, little references here and there. Like, what if we did this? What if we do that? Yeah, it was a great process. So I would love to do it again next year. And
how many hours would you say you put in over those 7 days?
oh, I don't know. You know what? Honestly, I didn't put in a lot of hours. I didn't. I put up a lot of the hours, and like the mental anguish for me was up front.
Okay.
A lot of it was getting the character arcs and getting the page breakdown, because like there's you don't always have to follow it, but there's kind of like a structure you can apply to creating comic book scripts. And so what I do, and because I've spent a lot of time doing it over the last, year or two, is to have like know what my character arc is, like know what their goal is and what action they take to get there, like know who this character is, and then outline it like one sentence over 8 pages. So I knew on page 1 this happens, page 2, page 3, page 4, and so on. And then as long as I knew that, I kind of knew my North Star, so I could work with Oliver. And if we had to change a panel a little bit, we could. But to start out like that, so once I had that, and we had gone over some of the ideas, because he collaborated on the story too, then he could polish the pages, or he could work on like concept art. While he was doing that, then I was working on the script and the dialogue. Excuse me. And every day I did a polish round on the dialogue, because lettering is the last thing you do. And it allowed me to like just tighten things up. But most of the work was at like that first 12 hours for me.
Wow. That is cool though. It forces you to like really time is of the essence. So you have to kind of take that technique and really run with it.
You can't be precious about anything.
No.
You just need to like dig in and go.
Yeah, I'll have you guys read it. Once you guys read it, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the ideas, like how we got to where we got. But it's fun. It's I don't know. I had somebody check it out already. They said it was Twilight Zone-y, and I didn't do that intentionally, but they said it felt like a Twilight Zone
Nice.
story. So I took that as a good compliment. But yeah, we'll be sharing that soon, and hopefully more after that. But yeah, with that, this episode has come to an end. We want to thank Bryan, our engineer, for helping us out each and every episode. Thank you, Bryan. And as always, we want to thank our listeners, including those of you who have signed up for a Corpse Club membership. We couldn't do this without you. Make sure to visit corpseclub.com to check out our latest episode and our backlog of episodes. We have 250 plus episodes, so if you missed any, you can catch up. You can sign up to become a member. If you go to corpseclub.com, you can sign up for an option which will include a pin, a t-shirt, membership card, and you can pick an episode topic as well. Don't forget to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. Every rating and review really helps. You can also find us on YouTube, SoundCloud, Spotify, and all of your favorite podcast providers. If you want to get in touch, you can reach out anytime. We're at contact@corpseclub.com. On Twitter, we're at Daily Dead News. We're at Corpse Club. And on Instagram and Facebook, we're under Corpse Club as well. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, stay scary.